Welcome back to Granite Spirits Podcast, a place where you can learn to connect with nature, creativity, and yourself. I'm your host, Laura Lynn, and we are in the middle of our countdown to our 100th episode. And it has just been so crazy this week of putting out a new episode every single day. And we're just over the halfway mark and have only have a few episodes left before we hit the big 100. And I am just so happy that I've made it this far, that you've made it this far with me, that um, that we're starting like something new um, after the 100th episode. And on that 100th episode, in a few days, I'm going to go in depth of all of my ideas of where I want Grounded Spirits to go. Um, I guess I'll say this part now. I was going to keep it a little bit of a secret, but I am working on a new theme song, so that's going to be super exciting to share um, coming out on the 100th episode. So stay tuned for that. Um, but yeah, so today I have a guest, and her name is Malene Bendtsen, and she is absolutely remarkable. You're going to love this episode. We get into talking about like what made her change her career path, and not only like just like her journey, but it's also like how innovative she is and how she really is a change making creative, which is where I want Grounded Spirits to head into, like having people on that are change making creatives for people who are change making creatives, so we can build this community of change making creatives. And I feel like we need both. We need the people who are willing to express themselves fully to become change makers. But how do you express yourself fully? By being creative. And that's why Grounded Spirits really is a place where we learn how to connect with nature, creativity, and ourselves. And I'll get more into all of that on that 100th episode and like more of the direction. But back to my guest for today, Malene. Like I said, um, it is her journey to get to where she is, but it's also how she views something that like books that have been around for centuries and seeing them in a new light, and how to share knowledge and all of these things that just got me so excited about the future of Grounded Spirits. I feel like coming over like that hump of this week of putting out an episode every single day. um and I'm proud of myself for putting out an episode every single day, but this guest is especially special because she she embodies where I want Grounded Spirits to go. So with that said, um, let me quickly introduce her and let's get into this talk. So, Malene Bendtsen is an entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience in innovating customer relationships as a leader in companies of all sizes. For the past 5 years, she has been a self publishing and business coach for course creators. Her author program specializes in nonfiction books for solopreneurs who are looking to attract customers to their teaching or speaking business. So, with that, let's introduce Malene Bendtsen after the break. All right, welcome, Malene.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here. So, I really wanted to just learn more about you. So, could you tell us about how you got into publishing?
Well, it was kind of a coincidence. And then again, it maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was fate. I don't know. So when I was 8 years old, I actually started a library in my room, and I invited all of the kids in the street to come and read books in my room. And also I had small pieces of paper they could write their own stories. I don't remember if anyone ever came, and it probably lasted a minute, but I remember that I wanted to write stories, and I just love books. I read so much. But I took a completely different path in my career. And then lots of things happened in my life. I got divorced about 10 years ago. And after that, I kind of felt I had to cut loose a few more things. And one was my corporate career. I was very successful in that career. And every time I was promoted, I hated my job more. So in the end, I actually ended up quitting, and they were kind enough to give me a year's salary. So I had time to think about what I wanted next. And what I wanted was traveling. So I live in Copenhagen in Denmark, and I started traveling small trips, and I'd never traveled alone before, only for business. So this was kind of completely new, being a week by the pool by myself, right? So I became braver and braver, and at some point I thought, maybe I should go for a longer time. I've been traveling a lot now. I want to go for a longer trip. So I decided to go to South America, to Peru, and I wanted to learn Spanish and figure out whether I could do some consulting, because the Scandinavian models of leadership are quite popular outside of Scandinavia. And I had this idea, maybe I could do something like that. But what really happened was I was supposed to be in Lima for 5 months and then travel for 2 months and go home. But when I arrived in Lima, within a few weeks, I was invited at a Christmas party. And this was all Danes there. And one of them had a small startup who were digitalizing already published books. And he asked me to help him get an investor on board for his small startup company. So I wrote this investment proposal, and they said yes, but they also asked me to stay. So I ended up staying 2 years in Peru. And I learned what I was actually doing was building a self-publishing platform from within. So I got to know all the bells and whistles of how it technically works, and also a lot of strategies. I met a lot of authors. And when I got back from Peru to Denmark, my inbox was full of people asking me, can you help me with my book? So I started a book coaching business. And that's what I do today. But I also edit books. I published 2 books myself, been editing more than 30. But I also have an author program where I teach how to do that, specialized in non-fiction books. So it's books as a marketing tool. So that's kind of how I got into it 5 years ago.
Yeah, wow. I love how, like, sometimes when we just like let caution to the wind, everything ends up working out. So that's so cool. I love your story.
I think nothing has happened according to any plan in my life so far. But I think that if we're not too tied up in other things, new things can happen. And that's what I experienced, that as long as I stayed in that job and in that corporate career, there was just no space in my life to even feel what I wanted to do next. So I had to cut loose. I think that's a life lesson. Cut loose something so you have space for thinking, space for feeling, and space for new people in your life as well. Yeah.
How do you know when it's time to cut loose? Like I'm sure it must have been scary to leave the job that you've known for so long. Like what was that?
Yeah.
Was that breaking point like with the divorce or what was it?
Yeah, no, I actually think it was a shift in the company that the CEO left. So I was head of innovation first, became head of strategy. Then we had a new CEO, and the agenda kind of shifted. So I had to, they asked me that I should change to fit the chair. That's how my then boss explained it, that I had to change to fit the chair. And my reaction was, I don't believe that I ever said yes to sitting in that chair. So we agreed I could look internally in the organization for a different job, and that actually led to another promotion as a director in this insurance company. Um, and and then I just it was a great team, but over time, I just realized I was talking all the time about letting my inner gypsy loose. And that was, I realized I'm leaving all of my personality at home in order to fit into this job. And I did very well, but it wasn't me. It was not me. I wasn't even wearing my own clothes. That's how I felt that every time I went to work. Yeah, and then also in the end, actually, my body helped me realize it, because I got sick and I couldn't get well. So it wasn't stress related. It wasn't really related to the job. It was something else, but it just gave me that space that I needed. So I never went back. I actually quit the job after that. So it was a kind of, it was if my body was helping me making that decision. It was super scary, but I no longer had my children were grown-ups. I didn't have anyone that I was responsible for, like on a daily basis. They were making their own money and living their own lives, and I didn't have a house anymore that I needed to pay for. I kind of let all of that material things go, so I could live on a quite low budget and stretch. I realized I can stretch this for quite a long time. And I don't really need to succeed a lot with consultancy. Just a few days a month would really be enough for surviving, at least. Maybe not the life that I was dreaming about, but it would be enough. So it helped me put numbers to it and think about, in my new life, in this new situation, what do I need to accomplish and to achieve in order to be okay? And when we think about not what we're gonna lose, but what is the minimum I need to actually be successful in, then it's usually a lot less than we think. Especially if we're okay with not having and not driving the newest, smartest, most expensive car, or if we can let go of some of that, we can create so much more space for new things to happen.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I really like to think about is like having fun. Like I feel like having fun is how you um get into like the place and the role that you're supposed to have. And so just
Yes.
like when you talk about it, you seem like you're having so much fun. So
Yeah.
do you agree, or like what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, and when I was doing mostly like corporate governance, and I was just thinking, how on earth did I get into this role? I was working in innovation with theater and designers and much more creativity before, and I have a background in accounting. That's where I started, so I know that stuff. I'm an MBA, so I know that stuff. And that's kind of the problem sometimes. If you can do it, it just doesn't mean that you should do it.
Mhm.
You should do what makes you happy, and where you don't feel that you have an inner gypsy, but that's kind of who you are on the outside too. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So now getting into your company, what's it called again? Sorry.
I call it Goosebump. I have a membership platform that is called goosebump.pub. Or that's a website. Goosebump.world is the community. But anyways, uh, but I call myself a publishing rebel and knowledge liberator.
Love that.
And the reason why I call myself that is that I see that book publishing is a very mature industry. It has been working the same way for ages, for really a long time. And it's a very old industry. There are very few dominant players. What most people don't know is that the top 4 to 5, even four, that's 80% of all books sold. So all of the rest, and since there are so many indie publishers now, so individual people not publishing with traditional publishers, but creating their own publishing, um, whether they create a company or not, they're still publishers. And if we think about how many more of those there are now, but the market share of the bigger ones is still the same. So everybody else is sharing the crumbles. So I think that creators are not rewarded well enough for their work. They have to give up their rights if they want to go with a traditional publisher, give away the book rights, which you really don't want to do if you're an entrepreneur and you're using it as a marketing tool. You want to control that asset, and you want to make the decisions about how you use it. Yeah, so I feel there are many things in the publishing industry that are not working well. The entire business model is based on paper books. That's paper first, and then also ebooks and audiobooks. So that's kind of catching up, but not quickly enough. And if we think about it from a more like a planetary aspect, there's a huge amount of overproduction of paper books that are never sold and then destroyed. And even the books that are sold, after we read them once, they're just sitting there. But what is super interesting is that we are looking into a brand new era, not just for book publishing, but for all business and for all marketing. And I think I need to explain a little bit about that. If you go back in time and we first got the internet, that's web 1. So we could read company pages, we could read blogs, but we couldn't contribute. So social media, the social media era is web 2. So we became the creators of the content. So we are creating what is actually the internet. Something is systems and infrastructure and all of that, but the content, the product, that's us as users. If we are not on the platform, there's no value on the platform. If you think about Facebook, for example, they live from advertising. So if we don't create content, if we don't keep people on the platform, there's no business. Web3 is about ownership. So it's read, write, own. So now creators will own the content. And this means that when I sell a piece of content, if it's sold a second time in a secondary market, so if you buy my ebook, which that package can include a lot more than the book, then at some time, maybe you want to sell it again. I would get paid again if that's how I set it up. So it's changing the business model, and there's no publishing platform needed to do this. Not even the print on demand platform is needed if we're talking digital books. And even some companies are trying to bridge that now. So it's both print and digital. But there's so many details, I don't want to confuse too much. The most important thing is that this is all about bringing creators and the users closer together without any intermediaries, so that we keep control. It would, for example, if I today, when I sell my books on Amazon, I don't get any information about who bought my books. I don't have their name, I don't have their email, I don't know who bought them at all. I get zero customer data. But in this new world, I will know who has the book, even if it's resold on the secondary or third market. I will still be able to connect with those people who are now the owners of the book. So that can go on for eternity. And I can even increase the value of what they purchased. So in technical terms, what they would buy is an NFT that is the book and possibly something more. So it could be a ticket for an event, it could be access to my community, it could be a course. There can be lots of value in there, but I can keep, it's called airdropping. I can keep dropping new value, and they can decide if they're going to keep it because they are hoping that I will send more value, or they are going to sell it, perhaps even at an elevated price, and make a profit from it. So these dynamics between creators and readers is just going to change dramatically. And all of these same mechanisms are available to other businesses as well. So it's not an industry that's controlling it, it's a technology. So all of businesses are going to change. So it's and all things marketing is going to change. So it's super exciting times we're living in, and most people have no idea this is coming, but it is coming. So one of my key takeaways is also that when you start seeing something about Web3, about metaverse, about NFTs. It's non-fungible tokens, and we don't need to understand all the details now. But when you see these things showing up, pay attention and start educating yourself about what is this, because it is coming. Yeah, and it's going to be super exciting for authors, because we today don't have any control over our assets, but we will have.
Yeah. So is this something that you're creating, or something that like just the internet in general is moving towards? Or like, how do we find
Yeah.
out about this?
Yeah. Yeah, and it is, in some ways it's brand new, and in other ways it's not new at all. It's been around for as long as social media, or even almost the internet. So the technology is a blockchain technology, and that has been developed since the 1980s, like the internet. So it's just been, I did a project in the beginning of I think it was 2009 or 10 maybe, about a blockchain technology project in the company that I worked for, because I was head of innovation. So we looked into that technology. So that's 15 years ago. And it's kind of been the pioneers and the tech guys working on this under the surface, the very enthusiastic pioneers. But now it's kind of breaking through the surface and becoming commercial solutions that have a user interface, so that you don't need to understand the technology. And that development has just begun. So it still can feel a little bit complex in some areas. In other areas, it's not at all. It's very simple, but it's still kind of just arriving. A lot will happen within the next 6 months, even. Every day, almost every day, I see new services related to books, for example. So it's definitely popping up everywhere. And some solutions will survive, some will not. And in 2 years, we probably won't even have to know it's called an NFT. It will be called something that regular people understand, and not, not from a technology aspect, but something more, yeah, obvious maybe. So it will still be changing, but it is coming everywhere. So just to give an example of how common NFTs are, Starbucks just launched their loyalty program is going to be based on NFTs. So it's all of the bigger brands in fashion. It's many of in NFL sports, and with Starbucks, it's everywhere. Shipping even. So it's entering all industries, but still at a smaller scale, and not everybody knows about it yet. But it's a good time to get in and get some PR from doing something that's exciting and different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying that we could put a book as an NFT like today?
Yeah, you can.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Actually, today Europe's biggest book fair is in Frankfurt these days, in Germany, and that's a topic there. They are launching that now. Independent authors can also mint their book as an NFT and sell it in an NFT marketplace, or even secondary markets. So these are especially, when it sounds technical, but it's just a website where you can see what to buy and buy it. You will need a digital wallet to do so, or your credit card, depending on where you are buying it. So you don't even need Bitcoins or something like that. You don't need to be a geek to be able to purchase one. Yeah.
That's incredible. So then, like something that you touched on earlier was about the marketing. So like you said, like on social media, like we're the creators, but we're also the consumers, and because that's
Yeah.
what we spend time there. So how would the marketing work in this new landscape?
Well, I do believe that all companies, including independent authors who want to publish a book, we need to teach our audience about Web3 and NFTs, because we're so early on. It's not a natural behavior to many people yet. But we will get help from some of the bigger companies, like when you, for the first time, you have an NFT that's from Starbucks, then then you will be introduced. They will be introducing to a lot of people the concept of an NFT quite soon, if not already. Now, I'm not in the States, so it might be there already, that you can, in a Facebook group, for example, that you can allow access with an NFT. on Instagram, you can already show the NFTs that you own. You can feed them into your Instagram feed, for example. So these social media platforms, they are well aware that they belong in Web 2, and that their entire business model is based on them owning the content. So they're trying now to bridge to this new world. And it's no coincidence that Facebook has changed their name to Meta. So they would like us to believe that they invented the metaverse, but they didn't. And it's also hardly created. It's not really created yet. It's still, the metaverse is virtual spaces, but there are many virtual spaces already. You know them from gaming, for example. But the metaverse will be when it's all connected and it's also bridged to the physical world. So that's just another aspect of Web3. It would mean that an author could host an exhibition inside, or a book reading, or a book launch inside of metaverse, for example. So, but it's a little bit difficult to make that happen in a non-technical way now, but it will be here just around the corner, I'm pretty sure.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much for talking about that. So you mentioned that you call yourself a knowledge liberator, and I
Yeah.
love that. So
Yeah.
could you, because I think that I'm the same way, because so let me tell you a little bit about me. So I started off as a teacher, and then I went to get my PhD in education because I thought that, like, how can we fix education to a point where everybody can have access to learning whatever they want to learn, going back to the
Yes.
whole having fun thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're naturally led to the things that you're meant to learn and to grow in your own way, you know. So
Yeah.
that's the whole reason why I started. But then once I was in the PhD program, I learned that academia is a gatekeeper of knowledge. And so everything that I was learning as a PhD student, I'm like, why aren't teachers given this information? Like, there are these studies that are done. Why don't they have this information? And so that's what got me interested in publishing and all of that. And so now I have one fiction book, and then I have a lot of journals that are written in a way of kind of like a lesson plan, like as if I was a teacher for adults instead of for kids. And so like the journals take you through these journeys of learning about yourself, learning about like your own, like what you consider fun, your own interests, so that you can like change your career if you need to and do the thing that you're meant to do.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so everything that you're saying is like super interesting to me. But I wanted to get your take about like how can we get knowledge to be more freely out there? Is it through the NFTs, or are there other ways?
Yeah, and there's definitely the whole concept in blockchain really is power to the people. So when we read about what the first people who started working on this, what their motivation was, it was about democratizing and making things transparent, avoid corruption, making it democratic. So all of these, and I think there's some societal, it's like a cycle from decentralization. When we have very decentralized systems and organizations and so forth, it will at some point be more, it will consolidate and be more centralized. And then at some point, it's too much, and we get this reaction, let's get our power back. We don't want to depend on banks, on even governments, and on publishers, and we don't want these social media. Don't want other people to set the rules. And then a decentralization is happening again. And I think that's why this pendulum is swinging back. We're tired of people limiting us from doing what should be possible with the technology that's there. So one thing is that we used to not have a transportation systems or the internet or computers or whatever, but we do have that now. And then it's people. And if you think about how few people in the world are really making all of the most important decisions, that's very few people compared to how many people are on the planet. And I think people are starting to realize also that we have some severe problems that are escalating, and it seems like it's not working with this model of decision making. So that puts this pressure on people, want to taking that power back, and they want to, and especially for entrepreneurs and creators of creative people, they want to create without limitation. Um, and and they should be able to also find their audience without all of these intermediaries. And after I had just hit publish on it's only available, my new book, it's called Next Gen Author, it's only available on my website so far. I just hit publish, and the next day I was hacked and lost my following on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm not able to get my data back. So it just became very current problem. Very kind of the universe telling me that you have a point. But if this was NFTs, I would not lose control, because it would be me calling the shots. It would be me designing what the rules should be. So definitely, there's a reason why it's kind of swinging back. If I want to touch upon what your initial question in this section was about the knowledge liberator. So like I felt that I had this inner gypsy, and there was a part of me that I was not living. I think really I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I think really that's my passion. I want everyone to be able to live their full potential. And this has to do with courage, and there are some practical elements to that also, but it mostly has to do with the awareness that you're good enough as you are, and you shouldn't change. You should live more what you already are. And a part of that is also I could have worked on liberating knowledge in many different areas. I'm also a teacher. I was teaching for many years, and so teaching and courses is one way of doing it. Public speaking is another way of doing it. My customers have courses. They are public speakers. So these are my customers. And when I help one of them, I help them spread their knowledge. So I kind of felt this is more, instead of just me and my audience, I can kind of get a wider reach and impact more people, and help them not only to publish their book. It becomes about their business strategy. Writing a book is the best way to get clear on your business. You will need your concepts clear. You will need to know exactly which customer you want for this book. What do you want them to do after reading the book? There's a lot of it's a lot more business and marketing strategy than it is actual writing. People are always worried about writing the book. That's just the easy part. and it doesn't have to take years. It can be done quicker. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Hey, can we talk about that? Like, I feel like there's a stigma that, like, if it didn't take you 10 years to write this book, then it must not be good. I think like a lot of people think that, but I don't think that that's the case at all.
No, but you know why? There's a reason why it is this way, because we've been programmed for decades upon decades many hundreds of years. It's been like that it was the monks in the monasteries, they were copying by actually writing another book, right? After that, it was the churches that held all of knowledge back then. So that's very conform institutions. Later on, it was the universities. So in order to be published, you needed to be someone already. You needed to be an expert. You need to be an authority already. And later on, we had publishing houses, and they would have more different types of offers as well. But it's very selective, and it's very difficult to get to I was almost about to say a proper publishing agreement, but it's not easy to get your book published with one of the bigger publishers. Then we invented an agent to help you with that. Now you cannot get an agent, so it's really it's really very few people who are selected. So when we meet someone and they publish a book, all of this starts happening in our heads that it's very difficult to get a book published. So this person must be someone. So that hold people back from publishing. On the other hand, when we do publish, we benefit from that, because anyone who sees that we have a book, they will start thinking all of this. So we automatically become an authority even from writing it. Yeah. It's not difficult to publish a book, to write a book. It's to bring it down to earth. It's just maybe 150, 200, 250, 300, how many pages of words. It's not difficult to put words on paper. It's difficult to manage your emotions doing it due to all this programming. And also there's a technical aspect to it that is about, I'm simplifying too much, but I'm doing it anyway. So the right side of the brain is super creative, and that's where we have the overview, that's why we make all of the decisions, and then the left side is sequential and will produce the text. But they are not thinking at the same speed, and even if you're a super fast typer, it cannot get out your fingers at the speed that you are thinking. So you have kind of three elements mixing into the production of this text, and it makes it impossible. Your eyes are on the words on the page, and we have learned. Have you seen these phrases where only the first and the last letter is correct and everything is mixed in the middle? Mm-hmm. So we see them as images. That's the right side of the brain, and it will start becoming creative while you're trying to produce a text. So I usually say that people call me on page 50. Then they get lost in their story. So what we want to do is to separate the processes, make the decisions first, so we have a very clear assignment for the left side of the brain when we start producing that. And if we then want to type it, or we want to speak it, or something else, there are many ways of doing that, but it's super important that we separate decision making and plan well first before we start writing. And that's usually not how it happens. And there are a lot of book coaches who recommend just start writing, no filter, just start writing. I'm not in favor of that. It just too random, what ends up in the book. And especially if you're an entrepreneur and it's going to be a marketing tool for you, then you want to be more have a more deliberate approach to doing your strategy.
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to with your program, when authors come to you, after that, do they still need to go to someone else to do the marketing, or is it all together? Like, how does the differentiation work between them?
I cover everything, and actually I cover even more, because I know that this book is just part of a journey of building a public speaking career, of taking the career they already have to the next level. They always want to build on, the book is like part of a system. So we pretty much cover all of that journey. So there are many other things, and also there can be, even if you say the book marketing, but it's really not that different from other marketing. There are certain places you might want to be visible when it's a book that's not relevant if it's not a book, but you still need to consider TikTok or PR, or there are many things that are just marketing, and that's a never-ending story. You can keep promoting your book forever. So writing should be 1 or 2 months, and marketing years. yeah, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm in. Because, yeah, exactly what we were talking about before, that my book took me like a month and a half to write. But now I'm like stuck in this like marketing phase. Like, how do I have the TikToks, I do all this, but it's like, it's harder than it seems.
There's not just one way. So I think that the most important thing is that you keep doing something. And I do recommend podcasts. Yeah,
the podcasts are pretty cool. So I wanted to ask you about the creativity aspect. So you mentioned that before your job was very heavily creative, and now it's not so much. Or how do you bridge that gap?
Before, in my last job, it was there was no room for creativity really, but there was before. I was head of innovation, so that was very creative. And the thing is that writing a book for this segment, for if it's a novel, it's a completely different thing, and I'm not an expert on that. But writing a nonfiction book, you already have as an author very organized knowledge, so you really don't need the creativity in that. You need some technical knowledge about how to find the right keywords, how to set it up correctly with the right description that will sell for the online bookstores and offline bookstores. So there's some technical things or practical things that you need to know, but you really don't need creativity for that. Maybe for the design, but not for writing. You already convey these messages in your teaching or in your talks or in your podcast or wherever you're used to explaining these things. So it's the marketing side that needs to be creative, and to do something fun. And most authors, they are far from doing enough of marketing, and most actually don't do much at all. So even doing something is better than doing nothing, but you should also make it fun. Think a little bit more in campaigns and more event-based marketing, maybe, so that you keep coming up with something fun that's never seen before. Then you can find the energy too. Yeah. Then it's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, I love that you were talking about the creativity within the marketing to have like the event base, because I feel like that is something fresh and new, and that it gets you excited about talking about your book. And I love that you were saying that like the book is just like one step on the journey, that it's like the starting point so that you can get like your audience to come to you and everything.
Yeah. And you know what? I think I was just thinking about it could be almost the reason for writing a book, because many people, they're not too fond of sales and marketing. But when it's your book, it becomes fun. It's fun to talk about all of this that it's a baby. Everybody wants to talk about their baby. So it might be a reason for actually writing a book if you feel it's difficult to come up with things and to talk about this. A book is always worth talking about, and people want to hear about it.
Yeah, I love it. So I just wanted to just give you another opportunity to talk about your business. You keep talking about being an entrepreneur, so I wanted to know, like, is there something that's next that you're thinking about, or like where are you on the entrepreneur journey?
Well, I don't know if pivoted is the right word for what I've done this year, but I had an online course, and there were Q&As, weekly Q&As, and I shifted that to this membership this year. So that's kind of what I need to work more on going forward. But also, actually, I rebranded, and I also work with customer segmentation and some emotional customer types. And I'm mentioning this because it's actually part of the book as well, that I discovered that that we have a certain story about ourselves that we tell ourselves as a reason for choosing to invest in this product or invest our time in this, for example. And this actually shapes your offer strategy in this new regime. So that's why I mention it, that it's actually a huge part of the book is how do you apply it to the type of customer that you have, because they're not going to find everything equally interesting. So I'm going to keep working on that. But you know what? I need to create like a gazillion pieces of content on this because nobody knows about it. So I believe that this book, there are books about Web3, there are books about NFTs, there are books about social tokens, there are books about the metaverse, but there are no books about how to use this as an author. I believe it's the first book about that. So I have a ton of content I want to create, and seminars I want to do, and all of this. There's gonna be enough content for years to come.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure. Especially because we were saying earlier that when people nowadays don't know what an NFT is or what Web3 is or anything like that. So I love that you're building that bridge that doesn't
Yeah.
exist right now. So
And so the next coming months, I'm publishing my book, and of course I'm publishing it as an NFT also because I want to create a showcase. This is how it could be done. So there are many ways of doing it, but this is one way it can be done. And there's a little bit of this: if I can do it, you can do it too. Because I'm not a tech person like that. I'm a little bit tech savvy, but I'm not a programmer or anything. And I want to show that this is doable. So that's what's coming in the very near future. That's doing all of that I'm talking about in the book. Yeah. Artificial intelligence is also something that I've been diving a lot into. So I've actually, half of my book was written with a robot. Uh,
wow.
so that super exciting. You can now give text prompts. You talk like a human to the robot, and you're telling it, well, you're typing the question, but in a human voice. You write an article about this and that, and it should include this, and this. And then it would start writing, and you go make your coffee. The cover illustration on my book, I spent 20 minutes creating it, giving a text prompt of 10 words to a robot, and that it created the image in 15 seconds. And so, and you could say, but oh, what happens for the artist then? But we still have to be, for me, it's more like we are all becoming artists with these tools. Now we are all artists. It's a new skill set that we have to learn. How do I, because now I have to imagine what I want. And even if I want to hire an illustrator to do my book cover, I still have to be able to explain what I want. Now I can mock it up, or maybe even get the final version like I did for the book cover myself. So there's a way for creators to do more of the work themselves. And in a minute, you will be able to put a text, and it will create a video for you as well, based on those words. And it's all based on machine learning. The robot has read all of the internet, and what it can do is actually predict what you probably want. That's a little bit scary and super exciting at the same time. Yeah.
No, definitely. Like I feel like everything has like a good, bad, a good, bad, a good side and a bad side. It's just like the way
Yeah.
that you use it. And so, yeah, I feel like with any kind of technology, it's to make our lives easier, to make our lives better,
Yeah.
so that we can focus, like you said, to go get your coffee and go do whatever you want to do. Back to having fun part, that you're able to
Yes.
do what you want to do, but you have the idea. And I feel like we have so many ideas on a daily basis, but so many of them don't have like the follow through, because we don't have a million hands or a million
Yes.
versions of ourselves to be able to do that. So yeah, I do agree that it would be really great.
Yeah. And if we want to sum it up, like in what is all this? I've been around the block with all of these topics today in this talk. So if I want to sum it up to something, we've been talking about the creators economy for a while, but to be honest, it's not been the economy for the creators. So that's really the big change now. It is a creator economy. There's going to be money to make in this area. Whereas creators of content has been they have not been in control. They have not been paid for their content. Now they're going to get paid for their content. So this is built for creators. So I think that's the interesting shift, that we've been saying creators and economy, but it wasn't. But now it will be.
I think it's great. It's like having like the piece of a pie, but now everyone can have a slice of it.
Yeah, unless you want to share it with your audience, because you can do that too with them. So they can kind of become investors in your business. Imagine if you are a pop musician and you have this new album. You don't have the money to produce it yourself. You cannot get a record deal. I don't even know if it's called that anymore, but you cannot get that. So what you could do was to create an NFT and have people ask people to invest in creating this album so that it can get out in the world, and then you can give them the opportunity to become co-owners of whatever profit's going to come from that. So if you become a huge international success, they will get rich, but you will also get your share. And how you want to distribute, that's completely up to you, how you want to create it. It could be for a movie, for example, for a very niche movie that no production company want to touch, because that's probably not going to be easy to make. The problem with all of these industries, including the publishing industry, is that mass market is the only interesting thing for them. But all of these niche productions, niche books, that are much more valuable to the reader because it's written to that person. And the music that is especially made for that segment, or the movies, all of these artists and all of these creators, they can now have a completely different place in the world than they could before. Yeah. And I think that's exciting.
That's so exciting. I literally got goosebumps while you were talking, because
that's why my program is called Goosebumps.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, because you're right. Like, it's so exciting, because I feel like a lot of the times it's like the traditional publishing, or like how I was talking about earlier with academia, that we there's like gatekeepers, like only this knowledge can come out. But now that everybody can make an NFT, can get funding for their project to make it niche, like you're saying, I feel like that's going to bring the world closer together. Because right now I feel like so many people, especially after the pandemic, that feel lonely and isolated, but this is how we're going to be able to like bridge gaps all over the world.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have some serious problems that we need to work together on solving them. Yeah. And I believe that this can help bringing people together across borders as well. Even if you think about, if you want to send money to someone at the other side of the planet, the bank will take all of the money, and there will be nothing left when it arrives. This blockchain is meant for removing these intermediaries. So I can send you money and it will be in your account 2 seconds later, with almost no fees. So that's, yeah, blockchain is the future. There's no doubt about it for me.
Definitely. You've definitely have convinced me in our conversation right now, like to look into all of this. So just to reiterate, your book is on your website and it's talking about these processes of how to do this. Yeah?
Yes. It explains, the first part is explaining the societal change that has happened with this power to the people trend that is coming back, and really has been among pioneers there since the 60s, but it's now really becoming more powerful. And then I talk about the publishing industry and why that particular industry is mature and a candidate for disruption that goes far beyond print on demand and self-publishing. And then I dive into the more technical terms. What is Web3? What is social tokens? And I make that as light as possible, and also that it's not half the book, but I needed to explain the concepts a little bit, because most readers would not know what it is. And then I actually move into, so how can we reimagine what it is being an author, and what could books look like? So one of the reasons why do we have these paper books, because ebooks are boring. They're boring, but they're digital. It could be a game instead. There's so many things we could do with the digital format. So I think this Web3 will also push that development, that we will have more interesting digital books that can, I always imagine a Harry Potter book, right? The one in the Harry Potter book, where it all becomes alive. That's how a book should be, and it will be probably. Mm-hmm. And then in the end, I kind of dive into a more specific strategy. If you have this type of audience, this is what you should consider. These are the reasons why people would buy an NFT, which are going to be the reasons for your NFT. So that's kind of helping it, taking it a little bit more into some more practical ways of implementing it. Yeah. So it's available, yes, on my website. It's called goosebump.pop. But it's that's where it's for pre-sale in the paperback version right now. But it's also in a few days, it's going to be on all of the online platforms as well. First, the ebook as a pre-order, and later on also the paperback and the hardcover and the NFT.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible. I'm so excited. I'm so thankful that we had this conversation. I've learned so much, and I'm excited to release this episode so that everyone else can learn too. And absolutely incredible. I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you. So do I. It's fun. Yeah.
And that is it. So thank you again to Malene for joining me today. And go check out her book. Everything that she talked about sounded so amazing. So um, definitely go support her. I will put all of her information in the description, and I do put it down there. Make sure to go back and make sure everything was there for everybody this week. So if you're listening, feel like one of the first people to listen to this, like right when it comes out, um, come back because it will be there. As always, if you learned something new, or if you resonated with her story or mine, I'd love it if you would uh, give the podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. You can also answer the question that I have for you on Spotify, or ask me a question on Spotify, or you can also connect with me on Instagram or TikTok. That would be at Grounded Spirits is my handle, or it's Laura Lynn, depending on what you want to see. It's Laura Lynn on TikTok. It's more of like DIY, arts and crafts, expressing myself fully, which is what this podcast is about as well. But I use that more there. And then Grounded Spirits on TikTok is more of like the spiritual stuff. So my hot takes on astrology, um, different little things that come into my head that are like they need to come out, and they come out at the most inopportune times, but there they are. Um, yeah, so thank you again for being here on this trip to, or this countdown to, I don't know what to call it, but we're gonna have 100 episodes soon. And so I had this week of putting something out every single day so that we can bring in, it's kind of like bringing in the new year, but bringing in the new era of Grounded Spirits in its evolution. And I'm gonna obviously talk about this on that 100th episode, but um, just that Grounded Spirits is constantly evolving. It's like my little child that is constantly growing and like finding its own place in the world. And so it's like really cool how when you create something, it kind of has a life of its own. And and yeah, it's just like a really magical place, and I'm just really feeling grateful for where I am in my life and my spiritual journey. Physically here in my house, under the stairs, in my little closet. If you've heard other episodes, you know where I'm at. Um, but yeah, just like really quick, I just had to mention it that today is December 1st. And so it's like really cool that this is the last month, the beginning of the last month of 2022. But I feel like it's like everything that we've been wanting in life is coming to us in this last month of 2022 so that we can go forward into 2023 and like it's gonna be our year. I know everyone always says that like every single year, like this is gonna be my year, but I genuinely believe it for 2023. um and yeah, so like I said, go check out Malene's book. And you can also check out my books. So I have Monterey, and then the astrology planner slash journal has just come out. So you can go check that out on Amazon. So basically, if you don't know about it yet, it is a planner, a daily planner, where I go every single day, all 365 days, and I looked up what astrological event was going to happen that day, or if nothing happened that day. I mean, there's always something that happens, like different aspects, but I also wanted to remind you, like, where is Jupiter? I feel like Jupiter doesn't necessarily change that much, even though it did just go to direct not too long ago, like last week. But yeah, like we hear like, oh, like it's changing or whatever, but we never really like take the time to enjoy wherever, like where Venus is or anything. Like we know like when it changes, and then we're like, oh, okay, cool, and then we move on with our lives. And so I made this planner so that we can see where we are, like the fact that Pluto is going to be in Capricorn in 2023, or it is right now. I don't know. But like understanding like what that means and like what that's doing to us as a generation. Or all the different retrogrades, or even like the asteroids, like Lilith and Chiron and Juno, all of these ones that we hear about, but we don't really know what do they exactly mean, like Vesta. So so yeah, all of that is in the planner. So it lets you know every single day what's going on. And then I give you a journal prompt about whatever is going on in the like all the energies that we get hit with every single day, but we don't really pay attention to what those energies mean and how they affect us. And so that's the hope of that planner. And then at the end of every month, I have you do like a reflection, like what did you learn from this month? How can you use these lessons and then to then um, literally just like create the life that you want to live, because there's a reason why you have that desire. Um, I don't know why this episode I decided. I feel like I just had like all of these ideas brewing that I just had to get them out, like small bits, but I'm gonna go so in depth um about what it means to have your own, to create your life and to actually be a change making creative, and how it's like it's revolutionary. And I'm just so excited that we're all here together to experience this all. So, a super long winded thing today, but just wanted to thank Malene again for um, being a catalyst. This interview we did probably a month or so ago. Um, and and yeah, like because of this interview, no, I wouldn't say just because of this interview, but I feel like she definitely like inspired me to put myself out there a little more. She is on a journey of being on 100 podcasts. So if you are a podcaster and you're listening to this and would like to have her on, please reach out to her. I told her I would do whatever needed to get her to her goal, to help her reach her goal. Um, and yeah, so like I said, I'm gonna go all in depth with all of these ideas and the direction of Grounded Spirits on Saturday, which is when the 100th episode drops. Tomorrow is when Marissa Hernandez will be joining us. And we're going to talk about creativity and astrology and ourselves, our bodies. It's going to be amazing to have like the three different like cornerstones of what Grounded Spirits is all together um, in that episode for tomorrow. So, yeah, that's all I have for you tonight. So, I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.